Hello, hello, welcome to Metal Wani. We are back with Tribulation to talk about their new album Down Below. And this time we have Jonathan with us.
Hi, nice to talk to you again.
Hey, how have you been? Back home again?
Yeah, it's been good. Actually, I wish I wasn't tour still. It was good.
As we previously did a studio report with Adam already, we can now go a bit into details, I think.
Right.
I am still busy figuring out the lyrics, and it seems that what's playing a big role in the album is the destruction of our nature or the world we live in, and also a certain grief about the current state of humankind in general. So how would you describe your view on the world and humanity on this album?
I think it's better to start with not thinking too big, but rather see the lyrics as something that were coming from us from within to start with. So with that, I'd say it's not necessarily. It didn't necessarily start with a huge reflection about where humanity is going or the current state of affairs with politics or with the destruction of the environment and such. But I think that comparison or metaphor is very, very doable and very valid with what was going on in ourselves. So rather than having started from this more grand, overarching point of view, we sort of started in the microcosm and then drew parallels to the macrocosm. In other words, the world that we're living in. So the lyrics definitely contain both the small and the big, and everything between them, and it contains different sides, and it's not necessarily a contradiction. It's actually complementing each other, depending on how you look at it.
Yes, that's how it seemed to me as well. And you previously mentioned that even the metal songs you write always start out as acoustic tracks. Was it the same this time? And how do you decide if a song is right to become a metal track or should stay in the box under your bed that you keep for your acoustic album?
I think that depends a lot on the lyrics, because on the occasions I have actually done that, I just felt like the lyrics were bold or fierce enough to actually fit into in a metal context. But that's not necessarily always the case, and I think, yeah.
So do the lyrics always come to your mind first when you start a song?
No, I don't think so. It's more always, or more often it's more often happening in terms of melodies and arrangements, putting pieces together, and then suddenly you have a vibe going on, and it's more you're starting from there rather than you're having a phrase or something. You start in the musical end of the spectrum, and more often it's like combining music and poetry. It's like you do one thing over there, and then you do the other thing over here, and then you sort of combine the two. Because to me, it's very, at least to me, it's very important that both things are coming from a place within you and has a profound meaning somehow. That it's not nonsense that sounds good with the other stuff. It has to be of some substance. So I see it as poetry combined with music, and the other way around. It's music that is complemented with poetry. So I wouldn't say that one or the other is more worth, but they are two necessary components that are making a whole together.
And when you write songs, you mostly start out alone, as far as I know. So how long does it normally take you until you open up with a certain idea and present it to the others? Is it at an early stage of songwriting or when the track is almost done?
Well, it depends. It's different from with each song, and I would say that, for example, Nightbound, that's a song where everything just fell into place from the start, and I just recorded the demo on one day, and no, I wrote the song on one day, recorded the demo the other day, and the third day I came to the rehearsal space and showed it to the guys, and then we ended up not changing much at all. We actually just took away some parts. For example, the part with that came 3 times in the original.
Oh, okay.
So we took that away, and so that was a really quick and effective process. Just everything was good from the start. Other songs need more work. They aren't right from the start. We need to find a way to make this Tribulation and make this into something that fits into the band. Everyone needs to come with to add something of them into the song, and then after a while it becomes that it's not just one person's work. It's actually like a collaboration and a product of many people's minds. Of course, that's the case with Nightbound as well. The lyrics there, they took a while to compose so that they would fit into the actual song. They were more like an essay of just long thoughts. So yeah, like a journey. But yeah, it worked out to be.
What is the song actually about? I mean, I know you don't always want to reveal everything, just a general hint.
You could say that they are describing a process, and in the beginning of the song, he or she is setting out on a journey, and whether you see that journey as metaphorical or an actual journey, well, both are valid. And that person is experiencing certain things and are drawing some conclusions based on those experiences. And the lyrics are unfolding, are very tightly linked to how the track itself is built, with the tempos or the riffs changing. When the sky splits apart, that's happening in the song as well. The like thunder is coming down, so it's also a bit cinematic in that sense.
It is, yes, and it's I think also the most progressive song that you've written so far, in a way. It has that jazzy 80s, whatever you want to call it. It's just a wild mix of so many different genres and ideas.
Yeah.
So getting that together is really, really impressive once again.
Thank you. Yeah, it's one of those songs where a lot of things are happening, but it doesn't necessarily feel, I hope not, too confusing.
No. So you were once again responsible for the cover, of course, and Adam previously mentioned that during the songwriting you found yourself inside that old house of stone. And so choosing a grotesque might be obvious, but not that much, because it could have also been just a normal cathedral building, whatever. So why did you go for that grotesque and also that hidden face and hand of the woman in the sky?
I think the grotesque, the creepy posture it has, and the what's it called? The proportions that are a bit weird. Also a bit, the creepy factor is also a bit weird on that one. A lot. It has a lot of like, you just look at it and you feel like this is something is wrong with that thing. And I'm actually looking at it right now. I'm trying to see what is actually happening in the picture, but it's also, there's a lot of fierceness in the picture. I think it's a menacing figure that is looking down, standing on this, probably standing on a cathedral or just standing high up on something. There's a rage in there. I think it also has to do with the color that is red.
Yes.
It's very ominous. But I think it very well reflects the straightforwardness that especially some of the songs have on the album, and that would be the fierceness, but also the creepy, underworldly, weird, awkward feeling that we want to express as well. That the strangeness, that there's something in that figure that is not, that like there's something wrong. It's coming from a place that is not very often visited by human beings. That is also there, and that's also in the songs, more or less. Some of the songs, I think it really, it captures the fierce aggressiveness and the spooky, death-like feeling. Some of the songs are with grief, but that's also, it's also very tightly connected to the girl just below his cheek, which originally is thought of as the Madonna, a Madonna.
Ah.
So I have some ways of looking at this, because to me they are the same being, or maybe two aspects of the same being. So they are one, so to speak.
That's interesting. I've thought of that.
Yeah.
That actually already brings me to my next question. I remember that you were drawn to rock and metal to kind of embrace your darker side and explore fears, as I think most teenagers are in a way. Then and still today, what are you most afraid of that you try to overcome through your music?
That's a good question. I don't think it's...
Or have you lost all sort of fear?
Well, no, but I think for example, if we leave the more introspective, creative side of things, performing, for example, I'm much more afraid playing solo than I am playing with a band. So that's certainly a fear that fear is gone pretty much with Tribulation. But what other fears? I think a lot of our fears, that they often take refuge and disguise themselves in myths and imagination, and that's why we are dreaming so many strange things, because they, in the dreams, are fears, and actually all our emotions take the form of characters or events taking place, settings. So maybe not only fear, but when you are creating something, you are also taking a handful of your unconscious stuff and just pouring it out into the music. So whatever you are writing, it always has a certain portion of your psyche in it, your fears, your love, your hate, your expectations, or everything that is you. But to answer that question directly, I am not completely sure. But I'm just thinking aloud right now.
No, it does make lots of sense, especially because, well, if an artist is performing, you always unveil a lot of unconscious stuff from yourself and present it to a really big audience. And that's, well, always tricky, I guess. But you always manage to, well, both from a visual and musical point of view, to avoid cheesiness, even though you're also handling lots of classical themes, maybe the vampire, maybe now the little bit gothic atmosphere with the church, with the cathedral. So how do you do this? How do you always avoid it?
Well, I think all of us, we are thinking a lot about that when we are, for example, let's say that we are making a t-shirt, or something.
Mm.
We have created some guidelines to ourselves, and we are more or less unconsciously following, of course, but it's also an open discussion about what works and what doesn't. But just to put it like this, we know where we don't want to end up. We know what we don't want to do. So we do something else instead that feels right.
Mm.
Yeah, that's the most direct way of answering, I think. Yeah.
And you're experimenting a lot with makeup, and even though you mostly tried it out on your solo project, I think by the end of last Tribulation tour you also started to come up with a more unique way of painting your face. So will you incorporate this more into Tribulation, or is it a rather personal hobby?
I don't think it's going to be as emphasized in Tribulation as it is in my solo stuff, but and I think it's going to be a bit more low-key there, and more in line with what we want to express as a whole. So I think it's going to stay more of a thing that I'm exploring on my own when it comes to the really crazy looks. I mean, I'm really exploring cheesiness with this the project when it comes to the looks. So because in the end, yeah, that's maybe a way to answer the previous question. We don't want to be cheesy with what we're doing, but you must dare to do things that risks being considered cheesy in order to do something at all. Unless you just want to repeat an old formula that is just repeating old habits or things that work. We want to push forward, but we don't want to. We want to push as close as we can, but don't push it over the edge so that it loses its edge. It needs to still be sharp and have the balance. We are, as a collective of creative individuals, searching for a balance in our expression, and we are constantly doing so, and it's always under development. We want to find a balance between venturing forward and looking forward and looking backwards.
That makes sense. Your new music video for the Lament is amazing. However, I think many fans seem to hope that you once again get back in action to create a music video for a single. Will this happen on this album, or do you just don't find the time for it?
I'm very happy to hear that. It's going to happen, maybe. No, I think it's going to happen, but as you say, it's going to be harder to find the time. But I really want it to happen, and the plan is to at least make another video, and it's probably, I can't answer that question, but yeah, I want to.
Good.
Yeah.
At what age did you first pick up a guitar, and why?
My father is a guitar teacher, so he just bought his son a guitar and brought it home when I was 10 years old, and that was an acoustic guitar. So it's there we go. Yes.
Okay, last question. I know I'm running out of time. A bit bizarre one. I know the silhouette of the city of the cover is Stockholm, but I can't help but think of the old Paris, probably also because of the cover of the previous album. And I know once again my interpretation might go a bit far, but I found really interesting that even in the music it felt like you had some French references, maybe the piano outro of Lacrimosa or the title Lady Death. So how much influence does the Bohemian era of Paris have on you as an artist?
Well, many artistic movements and eras have had their impact on all of us, I think. For example, I'm very influenced by the aesthetic arts and crafts movement. with Art Nouveau, with art decadent illustrators like Harry Clark and Aubrey Beardsley. But more specifically for this album, I think it's just put it like this: the Latin-based languages. If it wouldn't be Stockholm, it would definitely be situated somewhere in France or Italy or Spain. This album, partly due to the cathedral, but also more the Catholic feeling.
Oh yeah, very true. Yeah.
And there's many references to the grieving Madonna.
Of Madonna, yes.
Yeah. So yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It was nice talking to you again.